she said. So you have a program, and you know, the order of the songs isn't quite the same, obviously, but you know, we're going to start with Tamlin in any case. And as I was saying to B there before I got up, it seemed like a good idea to sing Tamlin when the project was floated. It just doesn't seem such a good idea anymore. Right? But this is our only really excursion into one of those great big border ballads, you know, that will have you sitting there a long time listening to me singing, unfortunately. This is the short version, as I've noted there in the notes. This is a shorter version than the version that I first learned. I first learned it with 1976-77, and I sang it the first time ever I sang in public at a gathering of singers, Feeling the Boyne in 1977, with my father in a pub in Drogheda. It took 29 minutes. And his only boast was, well, nobody left, you know. So we're only going to sing a short version, it's only got 34 verses, and Niamh is here to prompt me for when I go wrong, right? So the notes are there, are straightforward enough. But it is a classic song, and there are interesting themes in it. I mean, maybe interesting, controversial in some respects. The closer you listen, of course, it's elves and, you know, ghosts in effect. It's that, you know, working midnight hour, and it's New Year's, or it's Halloween and so on. But also, you know, Lady Margaret goes off to the wood to get herbs, you know, to lose the baby she's carrying. And this is the nature of tradition it deals with. As Brigid's going to sing you some lovely murder bits. You know, it deals with murder in a most light-hearted manner, often. Sometimes tragically and sometimes like, you know what? Anyway, let's have a look. Lady Margaret with a needle and a thread, and she was all dressed in black, when a thought came in her head that she'd wander in the woods to pick flowers to flower her hat, me boys, to pick flowers to flower her hat. So she's hoisted up her petticoat a bit above her knee, and so nimble she's run o'er the ground, until she came to that green, green wood. To pull those branches down, my boys, to pull those branches down. And up then starts a fine young man, and he's standing by a tree. He says, how dare you pull them branches down, and ask nae leave of me, lady, and ask nae leave of me. Well, this little wood, it was my very own, and my daddy, he gave it to me. So I will pull them branches down, and ask no leave of thee, young man, and ask no leave of thee. But he's taken her by the milk-white hand, and by the grass-green sleeve, and he's pulled her down at the foot of a bush, and he never once asked her leave, my boys, he never once asked her leave. And when all was done, she turned around for to ask that young man's name, but she nothing saw and nothing heard. And oh, how those woods grew dim, my boys, and oh, how them woods grew dim. There were 24 ladies all sitting in a hall, and they read as any rose, except it was for Lady Margaret, and it's pale and wan she goes, me boys, it's pale and wan she goes. There were 24 ladies all sitting in a hall, and they were all playing at chess, except it was for Lady Margaret, and she's green as any glass, me boys, she's green as any glass. Well, up then speaks a little servant girl, and she's lifted her hand and smiled. She says, I think Our Lady has loved too long, and now she goes with child, my boys, and now she goes with child. Up then spoke an aged knight, and he lay o'er the castle wall. If ever, alas, fair Margaret, says he, but we'll be blamed for all, my lady, we'll be blamed for all. Oh, hold your tongue, you ill-starred knight, and ill death may you die. Father my child on whom I will, I'll father nane on thee, old man, I'll father nane on thee. For the horse that my true love rides on is swifter than the wind, with silver he is shod before, with burning gold behind, my boys, oh, burning gold behind. And up then spoke a second servant girl, and if ever, alas, says she, I think I know a herb in the green, green wood that will twine thy babe from thee, my lady, 'twill twine thy babe thumb thee. Lady Margaret's taken up her silver comb and made haste to comb her hair, and she's away to the green, green wood, as fast as she can tear, me boys, oh, as fast as she can tear. And she's hardly picked a hair, but a hair, but scarcely one, when up then starts young Tam Lane. He says, lady, leave it alone, alone, oh, lady, leave it alone. Oh, why plucks thou that bitter, bitter herb, that plant that grows so grey, and all too still that bonny babe, that we got us in our play, lady, that we got us in our play. Oh, tell to me now the truth, Tam Lin, if a mortal man you be, I'll tell you no lie now, Margaret, says he, I was christened as good as thee, I was christened as good as thee. But once on a bitter, bitter day, 'twas from my horse I fell, the Queen of Elfin, she did take me, under yonder green hill to dwell, under yonder green hill to dwell. And I would never tire, Margaret, in the Elfin land to dwell, for pleasant is the Elfin land, but an eerie tale to tell, my love, such an eerie tale to tell. For it's nigh on every 7 years they pay a tithe to hell, and I've been so fair and so full of flesh, sure I fear 'twill be myself, my love, I fear 'twill be myself. But tonight being Halloween, Margaret, and the morn being Hallow Day, so win me if you will, for all I know you may, my love, for all I know you may. Yeah, the night being Halloween, Margaret, when the elfin host do ride, and if you would your true love win, to the old mill bridge you must bide, to the old mill bridge you must bide. And first will come a black horse, and then will come a brown, and then will race by the white, and you must hold him fast and fear him not. He's the father of your child, he is the father of your child. And then they will turn me all in your arms, into many's a beast so wild, but you must hold me fast and fear me not. I'm the father of your child, my love, I'm the father of your child. So Lady Margaret's taken up her silver comb and made haste to comb her hair, and she's away to the old mill bridge, as fast as she can tear, me boys, as fast as she can tear. And at the dark night hour of the night, she heard those bridles ring, and oh, my boys, it cheered her heart, more than any mortal thing it did, more than any mortal thing. And first raced by a black horse, and then raced by a brown, and then came by the white, and she flung her arms around its neck, and it didn't hurt or fright me, boys, it didn't hurt or fright. And the thunder rolled across the sky, and the stars blazed out like day, and the Queen of the Elves, she gave a thrilling shout, saying, young Tam Lin's away, away, oh, young Tam Lin's away. And the first thing they changed him to all in her arms was into a lion that roared so wild, but she held him fast and feared him not. He was the father of her child, she knew. He was the father of her child. And the next thing they changed him to all in her arms was into a hissing snake, but she held him fast and feared him not. He was one of God's own make, she knew. He was one of God's own make. And the next thing they changed him to all in her arms was into a red-hot bar of iron, but she held it fast and feared it not. And it did to her no harm, my boys, it did to her no harm. And then they changed him all in her arms, was into a naked man, and she's flung her cloak all over him, and she's cried, my love, I won, oh, she cried, my love, I've won. And out of a bush spoke the elfin queen, and she's red as any blood. I should have pulled out your two grey eyes and put into a wood, Tamlin, and put into a wood. If I had only known, Tamlin, before we left from home, I'd have ripped out that heart of flesh and put in a heart of stone, Tamlin, and put in a heart of stone. Oh, if I had only known, Tamlin, the elfin queen did say I'd have paid my tithe 7 times to hell, ere you'd been won away, my love, ere you'd been won away. Did nobody leave, but we got a couple of extra people in. Okay, so you know, it's a big, big song. And you got an extra verse there thrown in for free. It just came from the other version out of nowhere there. It's one of the problems with learning a song with multiple verses and different versions. Sometimes they flood your mind there. I see Niamh shaking her head. So now we're going to have a different song. And again, the notes there explain it's Iruraya, or famously called the Catch in the Cree. And, you know, the catch is a fairly, you know, what could you say, a double meaning term in the Scottish, you know, sort of Scottish dialect. And so it's meant to be a slightly bawdy song. And when my granduncle Mick, my father's, great influence my father's singing, was his uncle Mick, Michael Gallagher, who was known in the family as the Old Colonel, because he was interned during the Troubles, really, in Scotland. He had been he worked as a cobbler in Scotland in Glasgow, actually, for 36 years. He came home to retire. And when he came home, my father used to go to his house very regularly and learn mostly humorous songs. But when this was recorded for the BBC, Mick was embarrassed to sing it because he thought it was too bawdy. And if they broadcast it on the radio, his neighbours would hear him singing about it. And he was a respectable Catholic man in the countryside, unmarried. He didn't really fancy the notion of being embarrassed. And at the very end, there's actually a line which uses the rather impolite word arse. And this was beyond Mick, even though he agreed to sing it for the BBC on promise that they wouldn't broadcast it. And a promise they wouldn't broadcast it. But even then, he couldn't bring himself to say arse on the recording. He just goes, and where'd they get in the wall? But anyway, they broadcast it anyway on in spite of him. And Sean O'Boyle was the collector, or Sean O'Boyle with Peter Kennedy. And Mick wanted to take his revenge then on Sean O'Boyle. He thought it was mean, it was dishonest. How could he possibly have done this to him? And Sean O'Boyle was a Gaelic scholar, among other things. And so Mick knew he lived in the city of Armagh. And so he wrote him a letter. And he couldn't think on how best to insult him publicly the way he felt he'd been insulted. So on the envelope he wrote, John Boyle, Englishman, Armagh. And incredibly enough, that got to Sean O'Boyle, and he had a great laugh about it with my father afterwards. So all that talking, you might think it's going to be a great song. It's not really. As I went down through Newry town, some fresh fish for to buy, 'twas there I spied a pretty wee maiden, at her I cast a glad eye, with a ruraya, fa-da-dee-da, a ruraya, fa-da-dee-da-do. Well, how can I get your chamber, love, and how can I get your bed? Me daddy goes to sleep at night, and the key lies under his head. Oh, ruraya, fa-da-dee-da, ruraya, fa-da-dee-da-do. So go and get the ladder, love, of 40 steps and 3, and put it to the chimney pot, and come down in a cree to me, with a ruraya, fa-da-dee-da, ruraya, fa-da-dee-da-do. Well, no sleep could the old woman get, with dreams running through her head. I lay me life, says the gay old wife, there's a boy in me daughter's bed, with the ruraya, fa-da-dee-da, ruraya, fa-da-dee-da-do. Up the stairs the old man crept, and into the room did steal. Silence reigned as the daughter slept, and he never twigged the creel, with a ruraya, fa-da-dee-da, ruraya, fa-da-dee-da-do. My curse attend you, father, what brought you up so soon, to put me through me morning prayers, and I just lying down, with a ruraya, fa-da-dee-da, ruraya, fa-da-dee-da-do. He went back to his gay old wife, and he went back, says he. Sure, she has the prayer book in her hand, and she's praying for you and me, with a roo-ra-ya, fa-da-dee-da, roo-ra-ya, fa-da-dee-da-do. Still no rest could the old woman get, till she would rise and see. She came on the stumbling block, and into the cree went she, with a roo-ra-ya, fa-da-dee-da, roo-ra-ya, fa-da-dee-da-do. The lad been on the chimney top, he gave the creel a haul, and he broke 3 ribs in the old woman's side, and her arse came again the wall. With a roo-ra-ya, fa-da-dee-da, roo-ra-ya, fa-da-dee-da-do. Sing a roo-ra-ya, fa-da-dee-da, roo-ra-ya, fa-da-dee-da-do.
Thinking, with my vocation in life, I'm not so sure I should be standing on the stage with these kind of songs at all. But anyway, good evening to everybody, and thank you for coming. I'm going to begin this evening with Lord Donegal, or Lord Lovell. There's a piece in the handout you have there, so I won't say too much except why I'm singing it. And when I was a youngster, we used to visit Galway on holidays, and we never went to Galway without going to Gaherlistrand to visit Sarah and Rita Kane and receive their hospitality. 6 little ones, and my father and mother, and they fed us and everything. And I had a great love for Sarah and Rita's singing, particularly Sarah's singing. And I loved Lord Donegal when I was a youngster, and when we got the record, once I learned Lord Donegal. And I sang it when I was a teenager, and then I stopped singing it. So for this project, I decided I'll go back and I'll take it up again and see how I can manage it. Oh, I probably have a bit of difficulty pitching my song, so you'll have to be patient. Lord Donegal stood at his own hall door, brushing his milk-white steed, when he was upset by his own Isabel, who hastened to wish him Godspeed, saying, "Where are you going, Lord Donegal? Where are you going from me? I am going to New England, my own Isabel, another strange country to see. When will you return, Lord Donegal? When will you return to me? When a year and a day has passed and gone, I'll return and get married to thee. That is too long, Lord Donegal. That is too long, said she, for you might forget your own Queen Isabel and think on some other lady. He had not gone but a very short time, a day and a half, a year, when sorrow and trouble came into his heart. In vain could he find his own dear. And as he was returning all alone, riding his milk-white steed, he heard the sound of a peaceful dell, and the ladies in mourning there be, saying, "Who is it that has died on today?" And to be torn down, while he fell kissing her cold pale lips as the tears they came rolling down. Saying, now as I kissed those cold pale lips, and you can never kiss mine, I found a promise I'll make unto you, that I'll never kiss any but thine. Now one of them died as if unto day, and the other as if on tomorrow. Lord Donny, Queen Isabel died out of true love. Lord Donegal died out of sorrow. One was buried in St. Mary's Church, the other in St. Mary's Choir. Over Queen Isabel there grew a red rose, and over her lover a briar. They grew to the church steeple top, until they could grow no higher, and they knotted together in a true lover's knot, for all the world to admire. Well, if John opted for a very long song to start with, my second one's the shortest, and probably the shortest in the whole Child collection. And the reason I chose it was because it was short, and I was going to have to learn 2 or 3 other songs. So the memory's not like it used to be, so I picked the short one, and hopefully I'll remember the 4 short verses. It's Bunny George Campbell. I've no huge reason for choosing it, except when I was researching, I came on a little notebook, a little book of my father's of 101 Scottish songs, and in it I found George Campbell and discovered it was a child ballad and it was short, and I thought, oh good. And I had the music, the notes were there, and then I went on the internet and I got onto YouTube and I got a number of different versions of it, and more or less the same tune, and actually found in the film for children, The Curious Case of Something Events or whatever, Lemony Snicket, where Billy Connolly sings a verse of it with a snake around his arm, and he's playing, it's not a zither but some kind of a stringed instrument, and he sings it, a verse of it. So Bunny George Campbell. It's meant to be a lament, and it's just as well John has a humorous song, because I don't sing humorous songs. I'm inclined, I think that's why I was attracted to Sarah and Rita Kane, because they always would say to my father, Paddy, sing a sad song. And I love sad songs, so that's what you're going to get from me tonight, I'm afraid. This is meant to be a lament, but it's a wee bit kind of waltzy. But I came on Duncan Williamson, and he sings a very different tune to it. And it's what I said, well, I have to learn it now next time round. It's just a very different tune, and it's a real sense of lament about it. And he was at pains to tell the children he was talking to that this was the MacDonalds killing a Campbell long before the massacre of Glencoe. So he obviously had some interest in that. So I'll try it now. High upon Highland and low upon Tay, Bonny George Campbell rode out on a day, saddle and bridled and booted rode he. Home came his good horse, but never came he. Out came his mother with greeting full sore. Out ran his bonny wife, writhing her hair. My meadows are green. green, and the corn is unshorn. The barn is to build, and my babe is not born. Saddled and bridled and booted rode he, a plume to his helmet, a sword at his knee. Home came the saddle, all bloodied to see. Home came his good horse, but never came he. High upon highland and low upon tay, bonny George Campbell rode out on a day. Saddled and bridled, so gallant rode he. Home came his good horse, but never came he.
Even though we have a big store of songs in the family, nobody sings Barbara Ellen. Nobody in the past generation had a version that I can find anyway. You know, if anyone knows my father singing it, please tell me if they know if there's required. So I don't think there's a version. So I want to learn a version. And I like this one because it's a wee bit different and it's very simple. And there's a great simplicity in how it was recorded back in the 50s. It came out on a wee record in 1956, 57 called The Lark in the Morning, which is probably the first LP of Irish music, certainly of Irish singing, which was produced in America by someone who doesn't get enough credit for these things, a woman called Diane Hamilton, who was one of the Guggenheims, but she made some fantastic recordings when she was in Ireland in the 50s. Springtime comes but once a year, when all the world's in blossom. Sweet William on his deathbed lay, for the sake of Barbara Ellen. He loved her and she loved him, and in Henry's heart was dwelling. Young William would his life lay down, for the sake of Barbara Ellen. Do you remember in the old town inn, in the old town inn a-drinking, I gave a toast to the ladies first, my heart to Barbara Ellen. As she was walking down the road, she heard the birds a-singing, and the song she thought the birds they sang was hard-hearted Barbara Ellen. As she was walking by the church, she heard the church bells ringing, and the song she thought the bells rang out was hard-hearted Barbara Ellen. She looked to the east and she looked to the west, and she spied the funeral coming. Lay down the corpse of clay, till I may gaze upon him. And the more she looked, the more she mourned, till she fell to the ground a-crying, "Oh, pick me up and carry me home, for it's now that I am dying." Oh, Father dear, dig me a grave, and make it long and narrow, for my love he died for me today, I'll die for him tomorrow. One was buried in the old churchyard, and the other buried nigher, and from his grave grew a red, red rose, from Barbara's grew a briar. And they grew to the church steeple top, till they could grow no higher. Then they mingled together in a true lover's knot, the red rose and the briar.
I'm going to sing Love Henry. It's a version of Young Hunting. And you know, when you're going through things after somebody's gone, you come across tapes and whatnot. And I came across a tape of that my father had recorded, and there was a version of As I Roved Out, and there was a version of one of the ones you sang last week, that Luke sang last week. Can't remember the name of it now. And this one, Love Henry. And written on the tape is just out on the front of the tape is Nellie O'Donnell. So the lady sounds to have an American accent, but she doesn't to me sound like a Nellie O'Donnell, if you know what I mean by that. But so I take it that Nellie O'Donnell was the name of the lady who was singing on this tape. And I remember years ago thinking, oh, I'd like to maybe learn one or two of those songs. And that's where I got this version of Love Henry. And I haven't heard it. Maybe somebody else has heard this version somewhere and can tell me afterwards if you have. And it's a warning to the men what the women will do. We're back to murder. So let's see. What's the beginning of it, needed?
Lights down.
All right.
Lights down.
Thank you. Light down, love Henry, she said, and stay this night with me, for I have a bed and a warm fireside, and a candle burning bright, and a candle burning bright. I can't light down, and I won't light down, and stay this night with thee, for there's a little girl in London town that will think so ill of me, that will think so ill of me. Then he's bended o'er the marble wall, and kisses gave her three. She had a little penknife in her hand, and she stabbed him heartily, and she stabbed him heartily. I will come down, and I can come down, and stay the night with thee, for I've no little girl in London town that I love better than thee, that I love better than thee. Shall I ride to the west, shall I ride to the east, or cross the sea and land, to find some good and clever doctor who can cure this wounded man, who can cure this wounded man? Neither ride to the east, nor ride to the west, nor to anywhere under the sun, for there's no doctor in all Scotland can cure what Margaret's done, can cure what Margaret's done. Then she called to her maidens three, and bade them for to stand, saying all the guns that e'er I wore, you can have them at command, you can have them at command. One took him by the yellow hair, the other by the feet, one took him by the lily white hand, and she round the middle so neat, and she round the middle so neat. They dragged him to that doleful well, and dropped him without a sound. Lie there, love Henry, she said, where you never can be found, where you never can be found. As she turned around for to go home, she heard a pretty bird sing, oh, woe betide the cruel lady, for he loved no one but thee, he loved no one but thee. Fly down, oh pretty little bird, fly down and come home with me, and you shall have a cage of the finest gold hung upon an ivory tree, hung upon an ivory tree. I can't fly down, and I won't fly down, and go home along with thee, for you could kill a pretty little bird as you kill your love, Henry, as you kill your love, Henry. Oh, I wish I had my little bow, my little dart and string, I'd shoot you through your lying heart, where you do sit and sing, where you do sit and sing. But you haven't got your little bow for to shoot me from this tree, and I will fly the king's highway and sing this treachery, and sing this treachery.
Okay, Brigide's going to introduce our next song because myself and Maura are going to sing actually. So rather than Man, Woman, Child, it'll be Man, Two Women and Child. So Maura's going to come and join us, but Brigide's going to introduce it with a little piece from my father's trunk. You go ahead and introduce it. Was it my sister Maura? All the way from the middle.
There are traditions in the family, and some of us sing some songs and some of us don't. And this pair have been singing this since they were youngsters together, so I wouldn't dare attempt to sing it with John. So that's why Maura's drafted it. But my father, last week, Mick was talking about, how the songs, Child Ballads, came into Ireland. One of the ways would have been through the travelling people. And my father would have come across this song, Edward, or as Daddy called it, What Put the Blood. And he would have come across this song from a traveller, and he gives a lovely description of the evening. He was sent actually to ask the traveller to move on. He got so enraptured in the songs and the chat, he forgot what he went for. But he gives a lovely description of when he first heard him. When the brave face blazed with wind blossom under the shafts of a heeled-up spring cart, I found the singer. He was hammering away at a large tin measure. And the singer was Paddy Dorn. And he goes on, he sings two songs. That's where my father learned the Blackwater side as well. And then he says, I had heard tell that he sang a fine version of Edward, but it took some coaxing before he sang the beautiful and dramatic ballad. Still, it was worth waiting for. The voice was mellowing in the spring sunshine, and the only distraction was the tiny pop of an early ripened wind pod.
Yeah, we could put words together like that, right? Even though we have done this together since we were small children, it's probably the first song I recall ever learning. We haven't been able to get together tonight. Maura's fresh in from the trail where she's been working, so we haven't really a chance to pitch or anything, so you'll be patient with this. And of course, Niamh was there to prompt if we get stuck. Okay, so Edward, whatever number that is on your whatever, or what brought the blood.
If you think Brigid's bad at pitching, she doesn't hold a candle to me on this. So there might be a few false starts.
I was fishing and fowling the whole day long, all through mother's treachery, all through mother's treachery.
What put the blood on your right shoulder? Son, come tell it unto me.
'Twas the killing of a hare that I killed today, that I killed most manfully, that I killed most manfully.
The blood of the owl hare, it could never be so red. Son, come tell it unto me.
'Twas the killing of a boy that I killed today, that I killed most manfully, that I killed most manfully.
What came between yourself and the boy? Son, come tell it unto me.
It was mostly the cutting of a rod that will never come a tree, that would never come a tree.
What are you going to do when your daddy finds you out? Son, come tell it unto me.
I will put my foot on board of a ship and sail to a foreign country, and sail to a foreign country.
What are you going to do with your lovely young wife? Son, come tell it unto me.
She can put her foot on board of the ship and sail on after me, and sail on after me.
What are you going to do with your two fine young babes? Son, come tell it unto me.
I'll give one to me father and the other to my mother, for to bear them company, for to bear them company.
What are you going to do with your two greyhounds? Son, come tell it unto me.
I will take the leashes off of their necks, for they'll race no more for me. Ah, they'll race no more for me.
What are you going to do with your two racehorses? Son, come tell it unto me.
I will take the bridles off of their necks, for they'll hunt no more for me. Ah, they'll hunt no more for me.
What are you going to do with your houses and your lands? Son, come tell it unto me.
I will lay them bare to the birds of the air, for there's no more welcome there for me. Ah, there's no more welcome there for me.
What are you going to do in the winter of your life? Son, come tell it unto me.
Like a saggin on the loch, I will bend in the wind, and I'll beg for God's mercy, and I'll beg for God's mercy.
I mentioned that man that Daddy met, that traveller, was Paddy Dorn, and one of the songs he sang, Daddy said, was a rather garbled version of the Raggle Taggle Gypsy. and it's not the Raggle-Taggle Gypsy version that I'm going to sing, but the Dark-Eyed Gypsy version. And I learned this version from the singing of Cathal McConnell on his CD with the most delightful title of Long Expectant Comes at Last. The title alone will make you want to listen to it. And I took a fancy to this whenever the CD came out and learned it. Also, it's, on a personal note, it's one that I used to sing for a lot of the elderly sisters. They loved the Dark-Eyed Gypsy. Give us the Dark-Eyed Gypsy. So I don't know whether there was something he missed in life or something, but they fancied the Dark-Eyed Gypsy. There were 3 gypsies lived in these, and they were braw and bonny, oh. They sang so sweet at the castle gate that they charmed the heart of the lady, oh. She gave to them the sparkling wine, she gave to them the brandy, oh, and the gay gold ring that this lady wore, she gave to the Dark-Eyed Gypsy, oh. When the lord of the castle he came home, he inquired for his lady, oh. She is gone, cried the young servant boy. She's away with the Dark-Eyed Gypsy, oh. Go saddle for me the milk-white steed, the bray is not so speedy, oh, and I'll ride all the day and the whole long night till I find my own wedded lady, oh. Then Giles put the spurs onto his horse, and oh, he rode so speedy, oh, till he came to the place where his lady was, lying down with the Dark-Eyed Gypsy, oh. Will you forsake your houses and your land? Will you forsake your children 3? I will leave them all for the one I love, and I'll follow the Dark-Eyed Gypsy, oh. Last night I lay on a fine feathered bed, my own wedded lord beside me, oh. But tonight I will lie on a cold barren floor in the arms of the Dark-Eyed Gypsy, oh.
Two songs left. This is my last song. I'll join Bridget a wee bit for her very last one. So this is a Lowlands of Holland you'll find on your sheets there. And so this is a song of my grandmother's. And you know, for those who are in the know, as it were, my grandmother's quite an influential singer. Everybody from Steel Eye Span to, you know, don't know, Flanksty and, you know, all these kind of folk, you know, were taken by her stuff. And she had a remarkable style. I actually was somewhere recently singing, and the Voice of God were singing, and afterwards one of their number, and I sang myself, you know, and afterwards we were standing around, and he said, oh, it's great, it's great. He said, of course, your granny was the real singer. What do you do? What do you do? But what's interesting from the project point of view, and this is a wonderful, I mean, it's been a brilliant project to be involved in, there's no question talking about it. You know, to be involved with other singers and to be sort of workshopping with them and, you know, listening to what they're doing, and, you know, Lucas sung a version of Barbara, you know, it's very interesting to do. For me personally, this is interesting too. That very first song, that big, long, essentially fairly plain melody, that's a completely different style of what we would normally do. It's very lyrical singing we try and do, very short and so on. So like 4 verses versus 34 verses. So different techniques, really. And for me, learning the techniques associated with trying to bring life into a big, long song, which doesn't have a very interesting melody, in my opinion, by comparison with this one, you know, is a completely different thing to try and do. So, having said all that, having had students out on fieldwork the last few days, I hope I have enough voice to do this song justice. So, oh, the hold, and we'll give it a go. The flask is water, by the way, just in case you're You'll have to drive back to Clare tonight, you know, lecturing again in the morning. The night that I was married and lay in marriage bed, came a bold sea captain and stood at my bed head, saying, arise, you good man, and come along with me to the lowlands of Holland far, to face your enemy. For Holland is a lovely land, and in it grows fine grain. It is a place of residence for soldiers to remain, where the sugar cane grows plentiful, and the tea grows on each tree. I never had but the one sweetheart, he is far abroad from me. Says the mother to the daughter, leave off your sore lament, for there's men enough in Galway to be your heart's content. There's men enough in Galway, but alas, there's none for me. Since the high winds and stormy seas do part my love and me, for the stormy winds began to blow, and the seas did loudly roar, and the captain or his gallant ship were never seen no more. I will wear no stays around my waist, no combs all in my hair, no handkerchief about my neck to hide my beauty fair, and neither will I marry love until the day I die. Since the high winds and rolling seas do part my love and I, for the stormy winds began to blow, and the seas did loudly roar, and the captain or his gallant ship were never seen no more.
there, as John was singing, the man I mentioned earlier, he was also a traveller, Duncan Williamson. He's a very famous storyteller and singer from Scotland. And he was a great believer in that notion that when you sing a song or tell a story, the person you heard the story from or sing the song is standing behind you. And the person who they got it from is standing behind that person. So there are a lot of people standing behind us on the stage tonight. And I think when Luke and Niamh sang last week, and next week when it's Mick and Rosie and Aileen and Tim the following week, there'll be a whole community of singers on the stage as well. And that is only happening here these Wednesday nights because of Mick Fortune and Mick's idea. And I would like to thank Mick for giving us the opportunity. And if for no other reason, it's worth this one song that I learned, and that's the Cherry Tree Carol. And I'm breaking all my rules about singing carols this far away from Christmas. But anyway, I chose this when I discovered, I said, murder and mayhem and revenge and sex and naked men and women and a whole lot. And I thought, how can I get up on the stage and sing some of this stuff? And I was going along and I thought, a carol. So I said, great, this kind of suits me better. But also to discover it was the Cherry Tree Carol was very special. A few months before my father died, he must have come on the words of the Cherry Tree Carol that had been sent to him by Sean O'Boyle in the 50s. Because at Easter, he brought them to the priest and he was telling the priest all about the Cherry Tree Carol. And a couple of days before he died, the same priest came to visit him. And the priest came up to the kitchen. He said, you want to get down here, sister, because your father's up on a chair trying to get words of something. And it was the Cherry Tree Carol. And he was very struck by it. I think it was the whole notion of the tree bowing down to Mary with the cherries. And I remember thinking at the time, I would love to learn that. And when you're so busy, you never get around to it and you don't make yourself. So this project alone has, if for nothing else, the worth, as far as I'm concerned, is that I discovered the Cherry Tree Carol as a child. Not that, the child meant too much. It was the fact that I could now go and had a purpose for learning it and a reason for learning it. And this evening, because it's only a few days to my father's anniversary, so I'm dedicating it to my father this evening. And John's going to join me in it as well. So the Cherry Tree Carol. If I can, just high enough for John.
One of them sings higher than I want, and the other one sings lower than I want. No problem.
We'll do a verse and see how you go. When Joseph was an old man,
and an old man was he, wedded Virgin Mary.
When Joseph was an old man, and an old man was he wedded Virgin Mary in the land of Galilee. He wedded Virgin Mary in the land of Galilee. As Joseph and Mary walked through an orchard green, there were berries and cherries as thick as might be seen. There were berries and cherries
cherry, that God thee with child, let him pluck thee a cherry, that God thee with child.
Then spoke baby Jesus from within his mother's womb, bowed down the tallest tree that Mary might have sung, bowed down the tallest tree that Mary might have sung. Then bowed down the tallest tree till it touched Mary's hand. She said, "See now, Joseph, I have cherries at command." She said, "See now, Joseph, I have cherries at command." Then bespoke Joseph,
I have done Mary wrong, but cheer up, my dearest, and be not cast down. Oh, cheer up, my dearest, and be not cast down.
as Joseph went walking, he heard the angel sing, "Tonight will be born our heavenly King. Tonight will be born our heavenly King." And Mary took the baby and dressed him so sweet. She laid him in a manger, all there for to sleep. She laid him in a manger, all there for to sleep. And as she stood over him, she heard angels sing, "God bless our dear Savior, our heavenly King. God